Hello, I am Madeline James, and welcome to this is sort of going to be a combo video. We're going to do, I guess, large and long scale, like, writing progress and, like, writing project tracking and stuff. I have some really fun stuff to show you. I got stuck at the car dealership today for a couple of hours, and I ended up making these, like, graphic trackers that I've been wanting to make for a really long time. And basically, I made like timelines of every year I've been writing, like what I've been working on at that time, like for each project, broken it down into drafts, and looked at like, I made like tables for each project of how long each phase took me, what my like rate was for how I was getting that done, and then that led me into doing some thinking of, how I can apply that to future projects, and if that means that I can reach my sort of goal timeline for how fast I want to complete projects and how many drafts. And I have a lot of thoughts on that I want to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to just sort of like, I'll pop these up as I'm talking. So you may or may not be able to see my face, but I'm just going to look at them on my computer so I can actually see what I'm talking about. But okay, so most of these I made for my purposes that I just think it'd be fun to show you. But this first one I made for you. And this is sort of like a project tracker, very like, if you watch Brandon Sanderson's like weekly updates, he does like these little like, he has like fancy animated graphics. But basically, I thought it would be cool to be able to pop up like when I'm starting like a vlog or a video where I'm talking about like an update like this, I can sort of have something pop up, like I guess it would be like right here where I can be like blah, 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 and then like just pop up sort of the status of my projects, because it feels kind of weird to, at the beginning of every video, being like, I have 2 projects in the pipeline, and on project number 1, I am this far through at this percent, and I'm estimating completion at this like, I don't want to go through all that stuff at the beginning of each video. It just feels weird, but I also think it could be helpful because, at least as someone who watches AuthorTube videos a lot, it's hard to keep track of all their projects. It's hard to keep track of what they're working on. And like when just watching a single vlog, being able to understand like where they're at, right? So I thought this could be interesting to show you at the beginning of those videos, just be like, here is my writing project status update, whatever. Because like you can see here, I have my 2 projects that I'm working on right now. One is on draft 5, one is on draft 1, and then I have like little graphics of like the closest like percentage part I'm at, and like some more detail on like basically what I'm planning on doing when. So if you're going through my videos, you should be able to see this and sort of like, I don't know, I think it'll be useful. Let me know if you think this is cool, or if you think there's stuff in here that shouldn't be here, or things that like I should add that would be super cool. Let me know. I'm sure I'm going to tweak this a number of times before I settle with it. And at some point I'll need to tweak this too when I start project 3, whatever that is going to be. I'll have to like have a way to show all 3 of them, but one of them will just be like, this isn't querying, so it won't be as detailed. But yeah, so that's the first one. So then next, these are project trackers per year. And if you've seen, actually I have it right here. I had a video where I showed like basically this, and I drew this out and talked about my timeline for doing stuff, and this is essentially a more, I don't know, detailed, I mean, it's not even that much, it's not even more detailed, it's just I'm doing it annually, so I have one for each year that I've been seriously writing and just what I was working on. And we'll get into this more later, but I obviously wasn't like fully writing 100% of the time for all of these. Like, okay, yes, I had 1 child in here. I had a moment of thinking I had 2, whatever. I know when my children were born, I promise. But I had 1 kid in this period, and obviously like a baby too, because both my kids are little. But this first one, this is 2021. So on the top of all these in purple is my Magic Forge project, and on the bottom in red is my Blood Magic project. And so, this first year you can sort of see I'm finally getting into drafting. This is when I really started progressing with my writing projects seriously. And then I started planning the next project. I dove into draft 2, and then, 2022. So I finished up with draft 3, and then I started more concrete outlining and planning for draft 1 of my Magic Forge project, and I will note that this also included like a lot of research and, still trying to figure out what that process looks like for me. Then I did my huge rewrite, my draft 4 of Blood Magic project, which was, that took 6 months. That was a bulk of the year, and then I dove into draft 1. I didn't get much progress on draft 1 of Magic Forged last year. I really didn't. If you saw my recaps of that, like, it was bad. It was bad. But then 2023. And this is what I've done so far up through, like, January and February. And then all the dotted lines are, like, what I'm currently thinking my plan is. And I sort of talked about this a little bit, but I want to finish my copy edit, draft 5, and then I want to do a quick proofread. And then throughout the rest of quarter 2, I want to finish the first draft of Magic Forged and do all my Blood Magic project query prep so that then I can dive into starting querying. I can do some minor edits. I want to do like a short pass on my Magic Forge project because I don't want to hand it off to like beta readers or alpha readers or critique partners or whatever until I do like one more quick pass. Like something relatively short where I'm just reading through, doing like continuity edits. If there was anywhere where I didn't finish filling in a bracket, I just want to fill that in. Just like stuff that I want to do while it's all still really fresh. I want to do all that. And then I will hand that off to, critique partners, my husband, whoever's going to be my early, readers. And then start planning and outlining project number 3 while they're doing that. And then I'll also, keep up with querying, whatever. And then I'm thinking with November, I'll start up with dev edits, again, of draft 3 of Magic Forged, assuming I have all my feedback back. And then once I finish with that draft, I'll dive into first draft of my other project, etc. And I like looking at it like this. I think it's fun being able to plan it out, and it's just helpful for me to be able to go back and look at this. So let me go to the next type of graphics I have. All right, so these tables are sort of tracking my projects, and there's a lot of caveats to this. But you can see my Blood Magic project here, and this is just keeping track of what I was working on, how many words it was, what the average rate that I was making progress during that period was, and how many months it took me to do. And then as I get into more recent stuff, I'm tracking everything by task blocks now, so I can actually show this is how much time this is taking me. Because the thing this doesn't tell you is how much of your time you're actually spending on that project, right? Because you can see here for the Blood Magic project, draft 1, my first draft was 150,000 words, and that took me 7 months. That means an average of 22,000 words a month, but a lot of those months at the end, I was doing 35, 40,000 words, which means the beginning of it was I just wasn't in a good writing flow yet. I hadn't gotten to that point in my life where I could be working on writing projects consistently. I don't know, I wasn't there yet. And also, let me see, you can see that with copy revisions and my major rewrite. Well, my major rewrite here was pretty good. That's 31,000 words per month, which I think is reasonable. I think 30,000 words a month for what is basically a first draft is reasonable. But some of this other stuff is just it really didn't take me that long, especially getting the Magic Forge project. I'd been working on the first draft for 3.5 months. I started with Nano, and then I didn't stop until halfway through February. That's 3.5 months. And I wrote 50,000 words, which means that's an average of 14,000 words a month. However, I did 5 scenes before Christmas. I basically wasn't getting anything done. I was horribly ill. I had this horrible sinus infection where I literally could not lean back. I was not sleeping. I slept for a week with an airplane pillow, just sitting up like this, or I was just in so much pain, and my kids were sick and I was burning myself out. It was just, I barely did anything those first bits. So I like being able to track in the future both how much time it took me to basically put enough time in to finish a task, but then also how much actual sitting in a chair time is this task taking me? Because those are two very different numbers, right? There could be tasks that don't actually take you that long, but you can't do a lot of it at a time, so you really need to spread it out. And if I know that in the future, I can just plan to spread it out and like interweave other tasks more with it. But like for that first draft, I really am doing about 6 blocks a scene, which is 3 hours per scene, which is not that bad. I'm mostly doing maybe a little bit more than one of those a night when I'm drafting. So I can get them done a lot faster than 14,000 words a month. Like, I'm a lot closer to the 30, maybe 35,000 words a month rate there when I'm actually like, okay. But continuing to track like that, this is going to be good. I want to be able to do this for each project so I can sort of see my growth and see, how I'm doing with my life too. Because, like, I could look at this and be like, oh yeah, well that's because this happened and whatever. So I'm going to try to keep track of this more as I go with all the task blocks. Those have really, really been working for me. My HB90 sort of method of tracking. Absolutely amazing. This is great for me. This is so motivating. This is such a great way for me to track it. Like, I cannot express to you how much I absolutely love doing this. It's just working so well. But then this leads into my next sort of thought process, which is my end goal and like realistic expectations for future planning. Because my goal, like what I've imagined as my goal long term, once I get through these first couple of projects that are, there's a lot of learning in here. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm still figuring out like exactly how I'm going to do things. And my craft is getting exponentially better as I go. Like just looking at one draft to one draft, or even just from like writing, like my major rewrite I did earlier this year, reading the chapters I did at the beginning versus the ones I did at the end, there is such a stark difference in quality there. So as I'm learning kind of like the fundamentals and really mastering the fundamentals and, that's going to get me to the point where my earlier drafts are going to be a lot cleaner. I'm not going to have to do as much, I'm not going to have to rewrite every single book over and over again because eventually I'm going to understand these things and be able to do them right the first time. So seeing that is going to be cool, seeing that growth. But also this lets me plan. And my goal, again, once I finish these first few projects, is to be doing basically 1 year per project spread out over the course of 2 years. So I'll have 2 projects in process at a time. I'll be starting a new project every year. Yeah, every year, and starting to query a project about every year. And this should mean that I'll basically be querying a new book every year until I get an agent. And I think that makes sense to me. I think it's reasonable long term. Like, obviously, I have not achieved that speed yet. But looking at all of this had me thinking, is this really reasonable? And I think it will be. So this table here is sort of my goal. Looking at this, what I imagine I could accomplish or work towards that I think is reasonable. Maybe not for project number 3. Maybe it won't be project 4 until I quite reach this. But I think this is I think I can achieve this. So basically I have 2 months of planning. And this would be outlining, world building, etc., etc. And I'm not sure yet if that's completely reasonable, but I also know that when I am in a planning stage, I'm a lot more motivated because you're doing a lot more different stuff. It's not as tedious, I guess. So I spend more time when I'm doing this because I really enjoy it. But I think 8 weeks might be reasonable. I'll get faster at outlining. I'll get faster at, all this other stuff. So we'll see. That's the one that I'm the least confident about. But then if I'm doing 6 blocks a scene for the first draft, which is the rate I am managing right now, that's roughly 300 blocks if I'm writing 120,000 word novel. And if I'm doing roughly maybe 20 blocks a week on a slow week, then 16 weeks, or roughly 4 months, seems really reasonable for me for a first draft, assuming horrible things don't happen, right? And then for draft 2, if I'm still going to do a mini edit, I'm giving that 3 weeks of 1 block a scene, so 50 time blocks total, and a time block is 30 minutes for me, by the way, or 25 minutes. And I think that's reasonable. Like, that's just a quick read through and touch stuff up. I'm thinking that's reasonable. Then if I'm doing like a developmental edit, give me 3 weeks to do my own read through and take notes and build a revision guide and do all of that. Give that almost a month, and then spend maybe about 10 weeks, 4 blocks a scene, so that's like 2 hours per scene, developmentally editing it. I think that's reasonable, maybe? This is where I expect to make a lot of improvements because I expect to have to do less of this in the future. And then a copy edit pass. Again, this is sort of what I'm doing for my current revision stage for my Blood Magic project, where I'm doing about 2 blocks a scene. And I think that's reasonable for a copy edit. I think that I could spend more time doing this, and maybe for later projects, I will spend more time doing it. But in theory, I should also be writing better, so I'm not sure how much time it will actually take, but I think that's reasonable eventually. And then to do a quick proofread, so a 1 block per scene, like basically just doing a read through, correcting a couple bits of language, maybe adding a couple sentences. That is reasonable. This is also, obviously dependent on me writing at the quality that I can get through with this many drafts. There's obviously only 1 developmental edit draft here, whereas in my Blood Magic project, I've had 2. In my Blood Magic project, I also had a cutting draft. So, I think this is reasonable. I think this is something that I can expect to do, and this comes out to about 49 weeks, which there's 52 weeks a year, so that gives me about 3 weeks of flux space of just having 3 weeks off. And this is also only counting as much time as I'm putting into my writing projects right now-ish. Like, I think this is with, 80 blocks a month. I think that's slightly more than I'm doing right now. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many I estimated for. I think I estimated like 288 task blocks that I could give to my writing projects in Q1. I'm not entirely sure, but also this is like, I'm doing my big world building guide, so I'm expecting like 12 blocks a month just on those videos. So like, I have more blocks that I can take from other things if I need to during certain phases. So I think this is reasonable. I feel like I've said that 85,000 times, but yes, this is sort of my goal. And this would allow me to do, spread this out over the course of 2 years, taking breaks for critique partners and other people to read this, taking breaks for me to sort of get some distance and be able to come back with fresh eyes. And this is my goal. This is where I want to get. I want to be at the point where I can do this for my writing projects. And I hope I get there. But okay, yes. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. I think I'm gonna, see you next time. And hopefully next time is my major structure analysis video that I've been sort of working on in the back burner for like a month and a half. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Cross your fingers. But yes, I will see you next time.